I've been waiting for this day for almost a year now when we can install these beautiful Fortunato coilovers. Due to the weather here, New York, didn't want to do it before summer. So we got these last year around July time. At that point I was like, you know what? Usually snows in like October here, so we'll just wait on it. So this time we are getting them ready. We have our first track day in 2 weeks. I've been waiting for this, maybe you have too. And there are many options out there nowadays, and a lot of people are either doing springs on the factory struts or coilovers. And I prefer coilovers, especially for the uses that we have planned for the car for the summer. We'll talk about those in a little bit, but first off, a little unboxing. So this is my 5th set of Fortunato coilovers. If you didn't know, I have a small personal attachment to them. I actually lived about like 3 miles down the road from them when I lived in Richmond, Midlothian. So I used to be able to go there, check it out, talk to the guys. I bought 2 sets the first time I got it from my 2013 STI and my, what year was that? 03 WRX. Love these. The adjustability, bespoke construction, you can ask for whatever you want, valving, spring rates, dampening adjustment, all that stuff. We had these built for us in our custom color. So we had these black and red to match with the car. Thought it'd be kind of cool, why not? If you guys want custom colors, we do that too. So check out the site, circuitdemon.com. In the very top, you will see a collection for GR Corolla specifically. These are probably one of the first items. Now what I went with, and I kind of regret it, is I did the Fortunato 500s with the Swift springs. Now the reason I say I regret that is I kind of wish I just would have went for the 510s with or without the Swift springs. The Swift spring upgrade, the actual springs are made of a different alloy, so you can get these in different spring rates, but these help with like less rebound bouncing. The best way it was described to me in a non-motorsport specific application would be if you're going down the street and you hit a bump. You know how sometimes you see maybe cars with cheaper suspension just like kind of rebound for like, I don't know, a quarter mile after you hit that bump. It helps the car get planted after absorbing a bump or any sort of curb, stuff like that. It just helps the car settle a little faster. These are, for me, were kind of a no-brainer. And to get the Swift spring, I've gotten these on most of the coilovers I had in the past. And the 500s are more for daily driving. They are like a weekend warrior, but the 510s would have been a better option for track use. Now, I do plan on doing like maybe 5 days or so track this year, hopefully more, but that's what I have planned. And if my needs change, I can actually have these sent back down to Fortunato and they will rebuild them with the 510 valving. So it's the digressive piston style valving. They can actually, just like I said, take these back. They will take the sticker off that says 500. Maybe they don't have them on here. If yours says 500, they'll take it off, put a 510 on, and it'd do a lot more than just the sticker. But that's something they can do, is they can actually rebuild these to your specification. Or if you've had these for a while, like with my STI over there, I can send those back and have them rebuilt, which I actually did with those coils. Those are the 500s with Swift springs. They actually rebuilt them to the 510s. So that's how I know about all that stuff. So if you guys are looking to rebuild, we can do that too. Hit us up, or you can go right through Fortune. But I love these coils. I've had these for a long time. Shout out to Terry. All the guys over there are super great, and I wouldn't ride any other thing. So with these, we have the front, which bolts to the knuckle, and the rear is a little different. These have the spring and the strut separate. Now we also have their, uh-oh, we got a screw. Maybe it's extra, maybe it's not. Maybe it's Maybelline. These come with the spanners, they come with the hex key for the spring perch adjustment, a bunch of other tools here. We have these extenders in case we need to adjust the dampening in a place where it's hard to get to, which we'll find out shortly. And the rear struts. Wow. So these are twist tied on. There's little fittings that go on either side of those, so don't lose those. Those are important. And on that note, let's get the car in the air and see what we're working with. So looking at a few other install videos, there is a lot that has to come out of the front. The rear, not so much. Wipers have to come off, wiper motor, I believe, has to come off, and the top cowl there. And there's a cover on top of the struts. It's kind of like a bar that goes across it, which is cool, but it's gotta come off. So we have the front cowl assembly off. We have the coilover mounts. There's just one in there, it's loosened up. I think at this point we're gonna put it in the air. Now, one thing that I did see that I'm going to address is the top of the front coil is covered. So that strut cowl cover has that area covered. Obviously these coils have camber adjustment on the top hat, so I am going to be radiusing that a little bit, just cutting a little bit so we can adjust that if needed, get a little bit more adjustability out of it, which is a great part about these coils. So at this point, let's put it in the air and do the dirty stuff. We're gonna start with the rear of the car. I know we just took all the stuff off the front cowl, but the reason for that is while we are doing the coilovers, we may as well do some extended studs. Now last year I did not run extended studs for my wheels. I felt as though I had enough bite on the lug nuts, but this year we're gonna be running a higher offset wheel for track days. It's a plus 38, so I actually wanted to run a additional 5mm spacer in the rear and 5mm in the front, just to give it a little more push out. I'm gonna take these H&R wheel studs and put them on the rear that are about 10mm longer. And then I'm gonna take the rear studs and put them on the front. Now, these ones are longer because they have this spacer already built in. So these studs with a 5mm up front, we should be totally fine. It's like actually more bite than the factory in the rear has. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. So yeah, we're gonna start in the rear, do these at the same time, then move up front, do those, knock it all out. Nice, dude. Just a little bit we need.
That's like barely anything.
It'll give us another 3 turns, which is all we need. So we have the new studs on. Those are all set. We put the rotor back on, calipers back on. I got the spring in there with the perch. We are gonna reuse the bottom rubber mount, but not the top. And at this point, we're just gonna put the strut in, bolt that down, and then the back's pretty much buttoned up. As far as the rear springs go, we got those in, we got the struts in. So this is going to be the spring preload adjustment, and then the strut will control the height. Now, we did put this down very quickly just to kind of get a lay of the land where we were at. And it was actually pretty low right off the bat. I had these, I thought like I had them like pretty close to the bottom there. The car was still pretty low with those being set that much. Obviously this is just the spring preload, but we need this to match with the height that we're riding so that the spring doesn't fall off if we go over any big bumps. So I did make this probably about a quarter, like an 1/8 inch taller on either side. So we did talk yesterday about not using these rubber kind of spacers for the top of the perch. I am gonna use these. Now there's 2 reasons for that. One, I understand that this is going to smush against the frame. It'd be just fine, especially if it's tensioned up all the way. But first off, because I am making it a little bit taller, I am gonna need to move this up more. And we were already pretty close to this threshold line. So this is just gonna give me that extra little space that I need in order to feel comfortable and not get too close to that. The other reason is, I don't know, I just feel more comfortable having the rubber between the 2 pieces of metal. I think for me, it's just gonna give it more of a, kind of like a friction clamp force, if you will. So I feel good about reusing this. The other thing too is like possibly like noise issues. I know people installing springs or coilovers can sometimes get some noise. Usually that's gonna be the Endlinks not being tight enough, which we'll talk about. But yeah, for this, I figured it's not gonna hurt. Oh, it's perfect. Perfect match. All right, so both sides match right off the bat. I don't have to do any sort of adjustment at all to that, which is good because the struts match, so it only makes sense. Math is math. So let's go ahead and tighten these down, and at that point, I think we're ready to move on to the fronts. So, end links. Typically, these are gonna be what give you like a lot of clunk, so you wanna make sure that they're tightened really, really good. Now, Toyota puts these beautiful little caps over the Endlink nut and the hex fitting that you use to take them off. This car's about a year old. We live in New York. I did drive it through the winter. We get some salt here. Sometimes what happens, the thought of these is great, but what can happen is water, salt, and any other corrosive stuff can kind of build up behind the cap, and rather than them drying out because they're uncovered, it just kind of locks the moisture in, which seems like what happened because we went to use a 6mm hex in order to hold the middle while we loosen this, and it just rounded like right out. So we have some new Endlinks on the way. Luckily, the dealership had some. But yeah, at this point, it's kind of like a lost cause for this side. So I'm gonna try probably one more time just to try to get something to fit in there and hold it. But I think at this point, because of the rust that's built up from it being wet sealed in there, yeah, we might just have to do a little bit of vice gripping or cutting or something like that. So we'll see what happens. It's weird because it like fits in there, but like it just spins. Well, like I feel like it's clamped on. Like I could spin this with the ratchet. But as you can see, we're a little crusty. Yeah, just skipping. My theory stands proven, I think. Bottom one came off super easy. Top one we still weren't able to get off. We had some heat, added some PB blaster. Fortunately, Toyota, while we were doing this, dropped off the new ones. So we're just gonna take the old one out with the strut, and then we'll probably cut it off just so the strut is freed up. I don't like to cut corners. It's not me, but it's a lot less work if you do this. There's a little notch here. Come here, take a look. You at home. There's this little like relief here. So I was able to knock the factory stud like right out. It comes right out of that. You could spin this so I can get all of them out that little spot. I did see online somebody said that they like cut that in order to get their longer studs in. We are just using the factory rear studs, which are considerably longer, but not like super long. So I can like almost get it in. This is really thin metal. So what I'm probably gonna do is just measure this to the knuckle there and just bend it a little bit with my fingers, which is totally doable. And then just bend it back when we're done. For me, it's, you know, like I said, I don't wanna cut corners, but at the same point, I'd have to remove the axle, which I actually didn't need to do. So I'll put that nut back on. If that helps you at home, cool. If you wanna take everything off, that's your prerogative, totally fine with me. But I think for me, like I can literally almost get it in there without touching this at all. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. The front looks really good. This is the first kind of height we set it to. I just kind of winged it there, but it looks pretty good to me. I definitely want like a little bit of room for travel just because we will be tracking the car. Yeah, rear's got to come down a little bit, but front looks pretty good. I'm really happy. I like the wheels actually a lot. These were left over from the STI. I think I mentioned that prior. These are a plus 38. I don't love how far they sit in, but they're free because I've had them for years. They should do the track days just fine. So as far as like street wheels, I got my other project to finish up the 2JZ swap before I go spending money on wheels, but I think the next ones that we're gonna get are probably a plus 25. Same size tire, should be pretty good. They look great. I like the color on the black, to be honest. The dark blue looks good. All right, let me show you this real quick. So the top hats for camber adjustment, I did cut these out and I made them not super sharp, as you could see. Those are accessible. I'm gonna put the cowl on after alignment because we might have to touch those a little bit. I'm very excited to drive the car and see how it feels. And I think we just gotta do alignment. We were gonna adjust the ride height before we pulled it out, but we actually are tuning it today on the dyno. So we're taking the wheels off anyway for the Pro Hub dyno. So I figured we would just adjust them while it's in there. And it's nice and flat in there, so we can get some good measurement. So next time you see me, we'll be in the car seeing how she handles. As advertised, we're in the car. So initial impression is the car feels lower, which is probably because it is. So first thought is I'm actually pretty surprised with like how soft the dampening is, which is, I think is good. Typically for coils, I do run like in the past, like a pretty stiff setting for dampening adjustment, but these feel good. As far as the spring preload, I got the spring to contact the perch and then maybe went like a spin, like a full rotation around. It feels really good. It feels very compliant, which is good. I know sometimes a stiff suspension, you'll hit a bump or it'll kind of push you out a little bit. The car comes unsettled. But yeah, it feels really compliant. I think I need to adjust the front dampening a little stiffer than I currently have it, but so far, so good. It feels great. Let's do some turns. So the other thing is we have these new Toyo R888R tires on, so these should provide some more grip as well. As far as the alignment goes, the rear camber laid out just at about -1.5 degrees. Rear toe was zeroed out, and the front camber I have at 1.22, I think was the final numbers. And then toe, I have it slightly towed in, I think like 0.02 degrees, which is in spec and kind of what I want for my street driving setup here. So the factory suspension, just through daily driving and track days, it was definitely better than the 2022 WRX that we had previously. That one was just, the springs felt pretty good on that car, as did this one, but the strut, like the dampening was just like really aggressive. This one wasn't as bad as the WRX, but if you would hit bumps, like it would hit with the car. With the coils, they seem a little more forgiving, and that might just be the dampening adjustment we currently have, but they feel really good. It feels like the suspension is absorbing more of the bumps and impact, which is what you want to do. I'm very excited to push it a little more, and we have that track day coming up in about 2 weeks. We'll be able to do that. The front feels like a little bit looser, but once again, I think it's due to that dampening. The only issue, once again, is the front wiper cowl does cover the top hats. We did cut that top strut brace in order to access the camber and dampening adjustment, but we do still have to take the cowl out, and I don't want to cut a hole in that because it's just going to let water right in there. So it's one of those things. It's 4 push pots. We'll take them off. I shouldn't be having to adjust it very often, but I will be doing that once we get back to the shop with our tools. Thank you for watching the video. We hope it was enlightening. I know it wasn't like a step-by-step process like we normally do, but just going over why choose coilovers over springs, and hopefully a little wheel knowledge as well. Now, if you are looking to get coilovers, we do have several different options on our website, circuiteven.com. Wheels, all that stuff is on there as well. We do have a GR Corolla fitment guide that actually shows you what the factory specs are, what some popular aftermarket specs are, and what cars look like with those specs. We also have a full list of wheels that are within that range to help you make the right decision. No hands. So we would appreciate if you guys would check that out, support us making these videos by doing that, and we are back home. So on that note, we'll see you later.